Welcome to some new r/MaliciousCompliance stories, where people comply to the letter but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. But first, thank you for subscribing to the channel and for all those likes. Today we have 3 great stories, so let's get right into them, shall we? The first story is called Respect the Schedule. This story took place about 2 years ago, over the span of about 2 weeks. I work in a factory on an assembly line that makes car parts, and my boss at the time was stingy about meeting quotas and people respecting the schedule down to the minute. Let's call him Mike. Now for some setup. We'd clock in at 7 AM, work 8 hours and clock out at 3 PM, breaks included. We had to do some paperwork both before we started production and after we ended it. Mike was up in our faces from day one about needing to be in at least 15 minutes before our shift started. He wanted us to clear the paperwork in that time. But the bus dropped us off at 7:45 AM and we needed to go to the lockers to change, so that was impossible. He also wanted us to bin production at exactly 7 AM and stop 5 minutes before 3 PM, so we'd have just enough time to finish the ending paperwork. But he of course had never done that paperwork himself and either didn't know or didn't care that it actually took closer to 20 minutes. Now that paperwork was essential. If our shift didn't do it, they'd get chewed out hard by quality control. And combined with the fact that Mike was strict about the quota, 8 hours just weren't enough to do everything they wanted. It was closer to 9 hours. But I said fine, I let it slide and started coming to work with my own car so I could be early and also stay 15 to 20 minutes over to finish up. I wasn't reimbursed for gas, I wasn't paid overtime for coming early and leaving late, but it stopped the near daily arguments with Mike, so I relented. Fast forward about 6 months, and me and my team had a solid routine in place. Everything went smoothly, we mostly met the quota, the paperwork was always done, until one day it was. One Monday morning my car had trouble starting up and I'd already missed the bus, so I called Mike to let him know I'd be running a bit late. I figured, hey, he noticed I try my best every day and he'd let it slide this one time. How wrong I was. Mike was polite over the phone, but he chewed me out the moment I got in. I was 2 minutes late, I made it at 7:02. Next time you're late, don't bother coming in. I don't need lazy people working here. That was just one of the nasty things he said, but it's the one I remember most clearly, because it blew me away. He used me being late to guilt trip me into working copious amounts of overtime that week, and I accepted just to appease him. I wasn't a very confrontational person, so I always took the path of least resistance in an argument. And, long story short, the overtime left me so drained that I overslept Friday and was late again. This time I made it in at 7:03. I should fire you right now for this. I already gave you a warning on Monday. This was the first thing he said to me when I came in. Sorry, I was just too tired. I foolishly tried to defend myself. It won't happen again. Plus, I've been coming in early and leaving late for months. Can't you cut me some slack for 3 minutes? I didn't ask you to do that. He answered, which was a lie, since he expressly asked us to come in 15 minutes early every day. Your shift starts exactly at 7 AM and ends exactly at 3 PM. Not a minute earlier or later. Got it, boss, I said, all giddy inside. The next week I came in at exactly 7 AM and left at exactly 3 PM. Production started at 7:20 and ended at 2:40 AM, so I could do the paperwork. That of course affected our quota and it didn't take Mike long to notice. We argued over that as well, obviously, but I reminded him of what he said earlier and it actually shut him up. He tried to get me to relent and start coming in 15 minutes early and leaving 20 minutes late again, but I just laughed and said, nope, not my problem. But the story doesn't end here, because of course Mike tried to pull more crap with me. He tried to get me fired for this, but it didn't fly with HR. His write-ups just bounced when he sent them further up the command chain. But he noticed something that I didn't. I clocked in a few seconds after 7. We used an electronic lock with individual access cards. So he passed a new rule that he planned to enforce retroactively. Only full hours are paid. If you clock in or out too late or early, the hours get cut. He came to confront me about that the following Monday, a few minutes after I got in. I noticed that you clocked in too late every day last week, so we will have to cut 5 hours from your payroll, he said with a smug grin. This took me aback a bit, cause I'd never heard of that rule before and I saw others clocking in at the same time as me, so I just stared at him in shock. He clearly derived pleasure from this, thinking he finally bested me. I'd have my pay cut for my insolence. I also checked and found that you clocked in 5 seconds too late right now, he continued. So this hour will go unpaid, I asked. Yep, he said, nearly ecstatic by that point. Awesome, I answered with a grin. See you at 8. I turned and left, grabbed a coffee and a sandwich, and I waited in the break room. Mike came after me 10 minutes later and finally apologized, asking me to return to work. So you'll pay me this hour? No, you clocked in too late. Then I'm not obligated to work it. Fine, it will be paid, now get back to work. And the 5 hours from last week, I demanded. Cause if not, I'll leave 5 hours early today to compensate. He looked like he was ready to attack me, but he accepted. I got back to work, those hours were paid, and we returned to our normal routine of me coming in early and leaving a bit late. And Mike never bothered me for being late a few minutes ever again, though it was a rare occurrence. For the 2 years I worked under him, until he left, I still worked there. I was late maybe 3 more times, but he couldn't stand my guts and actively avoided me after that point. The next story is called Employee Manual Compliance. Here's something I hope that others can turn to their own advantage. Small, but does the job. I took a few years off to have kids. Ladies, you know the drill. Then back to retail to gain a reference for a part-time office job in a company I should call Da Biz. Once hired at Da Biz, I improved and expanded that second job by reading the manuals and taking on responsibilities for technical tasks that nobody else wanted to learn how to do. Spreadsheets, backups, documentation, inventory. All my life I have avoided being manipulated by experts. My parents, my teachers, my church, my classmates. So when the first thing HR said upon hiring me was, last hired, first fired, we can lay you off at any time without reason, I knew it was time to study the employee manual. Part-time work had definitive advantages. For instance, when the kids did the chicken pox at the classic 2 weeks intervals, if I had been full-time, they would have fired me. Said so right there in that employee manual. Such sweethearts. I worked very hard and was amused at the contortions my employers went through to keep me legal. There's a limit to the number of hours one can work in a calendar year and still be considered part-time. I invariably ran out of hours in early October. Somehow they would contrive to keep me working without benefits for the rest of the year. Suddenly, at 4 years and 8 months, they offered me to let me go full-time. This was entirely unexpected. The kids were old enough, I was already considering it. But for them to offer without being asked, no applications, interviews and ceremonial groveling, garbage alarm goes double rupee ding ding. Back to the manual. Oh, well, that's entirely characteristic of Da Biz. That's very kind of you, sir. I shall be happy to go full-time in 4 months, as soon as I have celebrated my 5th year anniversary with Da Biz. 4 months? We want you to start right away. But you see, sir, if I go full-time before working a full 5 years, I lose our seniority and the extra week of vacation I've worked so hard for. It's right here in your employee manual. If I wait 4 months, I keep my seniority and vacation. If I stay part-time forever, I still keep my seniority and vacation. And of course my flexibility if there's something in the family. It makes no difference to my paycheck, as you are not offering a raise. Indeed, without a raise to support the cost of your benefits, take-home pay will be less. He looked at me, I looked at him, and we understood each other perfectly. Nice try, go tell your boss it didn't work. You know, the jerk who made the secretaries tap up his thesis and made me tweak all the graphs to make his data support his conclusions. I went full-time shortly after my 5th anniversary and worked there for another 15 years. The last story is called Should Read the Contract. I'm an artist and graphic designer. I've worked on comics, video games and webtoons and the like, and I'm pretty successful at it as a freelancer. I've recently left my design team and have been flying solo with some decent success. Got a fairly big project from a group making a sort of adult choose-your-own adventure interactive comic. I've been hired to design the girls, monsters and some items based on guidelines from a scenario book. Since it's easy enough and adult projects pay well, though they don't go into my main resume, I took it. The cost of the project broke down like this. Each character was determined to be 250 per figure, so front, back, side are each 250, with accessories, outfits and stuff being an additional 100 to 250 depending on difficulty. There are multipliers and caveats from character difficulties like hair, curls, lace, things that will take more time. Requests, redraws and all that are extra after the initial sketch work has been approved, and anything outside the scope of the guideline. So if you ask me to design a freckle-faced redhead and I do that, and you decide she should be blonde or raven-haired, I'm gonna charge you for that. There were 16 characters, 12 monsters and a whole lot of treasure, trinkets and accessories to draw. So this was a big money project for me and about 3 weeks of solid 9-to-5 work. I got right on it. Now, the scenario writer, we'll call her Jessica, was cool. Her notes were clear. She was very organized. Had a spreadsheet and PDF with hyperlinks to examples and visuals. Was everything you wanted with doing this kind of work. No mystery, no guessing. I knew exactly what she wanted. The other guy, the lead writer, Jen, this man was a headache and a half. My contract covered everything I discussed above and some more, royalties and whatnot, but specifically spoke about changes, fixes and alterations outside of the scope of the guideline. Something someone apparently did not tell this idiot. The first 8 designs went well. Working with Jessica was easy. She approved everything quickly, though didn't sign off on them. I think it was because she was to present them to someone else for final approvals or something. She only wanted minor changes and commended me for sticking close to her vision from the guidelines she created. Then she got sick and the project director told me Jen was going to be approving the designs from here on out. Jen did not like anything and wanted me to change everything. Not only bad ideas, but also kind of offensive. Don't we already have a blonde? Why can't this one have purple hair and a thicker body? Why is this one fat? She was not fat. She was like Mei from Overwatch and personally the scenario writer's favorite design. There were notes about every little aspect of that character and I knew I got it right. In the end, all of the changes he asked for would make the girls look kind of the same, just palette swaps but very little difference. Like they were all to his own personal aesthetics, not like a balanced roster like Jessica wanted. I tried to explain to him about the changes, the contracts and all of that, but he was rude, condescending and disrespectful. He even said they didn't know why we were paying me so much, they were better artists on DeviantArt. Which I'll say, yes, there are, but they wouldn't work with a jerk like that. He demanded more changes and more fixes and a lot of stuff outside the scope of the project, and threatened to terminate my contract using one of the clauses, which would say that I was not working up to the ability and aesthetics displayed when I was hired. Basically, my art wasn't at the same level as my portfolio and gallery. They'd only pay for half of the total work no matter what was done, and everyone would cut their losses. He brought this up almost every time I brought up how his changes were against the contract. He'd say he read the contract, but I didn't think he had. He was also disapproving designs that Jessica had already approved and told me to just do what I was told or he would find someone better. When I complained to the project manager, they differed to the writer and didn't really wanna listen to me about the contract. So if they didn't care, I didn't care. I did all of his stupid design, all of his accessories and changes, everything that he wanted. I was happy, enthusiastic. All of those great designs I did for Jessica were replaced and I got written confirmation that he was rejecting the designs and that he wanted the new one. I did everything I was asked, cause I knew how this was going to go down. Eventually, Jessica returned and was livid about the new design. The other person above her and the writer were also upset, as they had liked all of the original designs and, according to the contract, I was to be paid a ton more for all the changes and edits. But here is where my compliance became malicious. In the contract, I specifically wrote that I can keep any rejected design. This is a hard point that I write in all my freelance contracts. I do not want you keeping good designs you didn't pay for, or hitting me with a "you made it while working for us" type deal. I keep and own any rejected design. So all of those ultra specific great designs Jessica wanted were legally mine. Apparently, not only did the rest of the folks working on our team not like the samey and frankly pedestrian look to all the girls I designed. He didn't care at all about the beasts, monsters and man, but they'd seen most of the ones I sent to Jessica. But I had in writing the rejections for those designs and the acceptance for others. When they wanted them back, I charged him full price for those designs except the one with the curvy May girl. I gave that to Jessica. They ended up having to hire me to redesign the girls according to the guideline, as my art would be used in areas of the game, promotion and apparently the companion book. And they didn't want to use the lame designs or switch out to another artist who would recreate my style. They ended up paying me almost double what I was to be paid for the entire project. And despite hating to fork over the cash, ended up paying me a retainer for some more work down the line. Yen was demoted to being a scenario writer for this project and no longer allowed to talk to the artist. I know this because the new lead writer, Jessica, told me. Also apologized for Yen's behavior and stuff. Yen spent the entire time doing all this blaming me and sending me passive-aggressive texts, but I told him if he didn't like it, he could always go hire an artist from DeviantArt. Moral of the story is, if you want to toot following the contract or threaten me with our contract, you best have read the contract more carefully. You might not like my compliance. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would we rate the stories in today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. and I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.